Two cats, three cooks. Do it.
Darling. Two cooks, three cats.
Hi, welcome back to Two Cooks, Three Cats. Today we are going to be making donuts. My friend Amber's son had wanted to learn how to make donuts. I've never made donuts. Ricky's made cake donuts, but not like the Krispy Kreme style donuts, which is kind of what we're going for. Not exactly the same.
Which are called yeast donuts. It's a yeast-based dough instead of a cake-based dough.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, Jude, we're doing this episode for you. So we're going to learn how to make donuts today.
So as Topher mentioned, these are yeast donuts, so these are going to be the kind of more fluffy, spongy ones. Cake donuts, if you don't know the difference, are the kind of more dense ones. You'll usually see cake donuts as plain cake and blueberry cake. Those are the two of the biggest flavors sold.
Donuts.
And then they're glazed as little rings. And we're going to make the classic glazed rings today. So I have lots of experience making cake-based donuts. I've never made yeast ones, which I think I've now said 4 times. So I found a donut recipe on New York Times Cooking that I liked, and we're going to follow it and cook it together for the first time today. Ooh. So hopefully everything works because I've tweaked it. We have we bought a deep fryer a couple months ago. That really helped our waistlines. A year ago, whatever. But we have a deep fryer. We're going to do it in that. You can also do this in a deep frying pan. Make sure that you're clicking on the description to download the recipe because there'll be additional instructions on the recipe for how to do this on your stovetop. We want everybody to be safe. Kids, if you're watching this at home, ask your parents first before you do it.
Yeah, don't burn down your house.
No, just don't. It's not a good. So we have some ingredients in front of Topher here. And as we said 4 or 5 times now, this is a yeast-based recipe. So we have 1 1/4 cups of milk here. And we have 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast measured out. And this equals 1 packet, by the way. So we need to heat this milk up. You can do this in the microwave. Microwave it for, depending on the microwave, between 45 seconds to 1:10. It should be plenty hot. Only needs to be about 90 degrees. You don't want it boiling, otherwise you will kill your yeast. So, Topher, if you want to go put that in the microwave for a minute. All right, so we have our milk warmed up. And Topher, you're going to add your yeast in there.
And that's not very warm. It's like lukewarm.
90 degrees is what it has to be. That 90 degrees is not very warm.
So it barely has a fever.
Yes.
If you're trying to get out of go and just go.
The milk barely has a fever, which is totally pertinent to making donuts. Stir in your yeast. So he's going to stir in his dry yeast to make sure that everything is nice and moist and those yeast can start to wake up. This is our proofing process. If you remember from our first one, in the focaccia recipe, we talked about the proofing process, making sure that there's a foam on top after 5 minutes. That means your yeast is alive and will make your donuts rise, which is very important in this recipe.
It's a little clumpy. Is that okay?
Yep, that should be just fine. Just go ahead and leave it like that. Set it aside. All right, now we're going to start making the actual donuts. So Topher, in front of you here, you've got eggs.
2 eggs.
Those go into there. I'll take your container.
And then this is melted butter. It's not hot, but it is liquidy.
So I melted it in a pan, put it in the bowl, and he can touch it and it's barely warm. So that all goes in there.
It's about 90 degrees.
And then there's a 1/4 cup of white granulated sugar that's going to go in. And then in the last dish there, he has 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. That's going to go in as well. Lovely. And then you're going to mix that all together. And it doesn't need to be too good, but you want to get your eggs broken up and get everything kind of melty. Get your sugar and salt dissolving. All right, and I can already see that our yeast is alive here. It's foamy on top. So,
right. I think that's pretty well mixed in there.
Yep, so this is going to get poured in as well. And just give that a good mix. All right, now we're going to show you guys how to prepare this dough in the food processor because it's a faster process. If you don't have one, there will also be additional instructions on the recipe that you can download to see how to do it with a mixer with a bread hook or even do it by hand. So in this bowl here, Topher, you have 4 1/4 cups all-purpose flour, not bread flour, all-purpose. That's all going to go in. And you can just set that bowl aside because we'll need it later. Go ahead and put the lid on. And on every food processor, there's this little thing on top that comes out. We want our tube to be open because we're going to need to pour our liquid in through there. So this gets set to the side. We're going to get a close-up going here in just a moment. So what you're going to do, Topher, is we're going to turn the blade on. We want this running. While this is running, Topher is slowly going to pour his liquid in here. Close up. And go. Watch the fork, make sure it doesn't fall in that hole.
Is that a good speed?
That is a good speed, yeah. You don't want to dump it in all at once, but you don't want it to go in too slow either. Toward the end, you can speed it up a little. Okay, took about a minute or so, but you can see that we have a nice dough in our food processor here. And it doesn't ball completely up, but it's not very sticky at the moment when you stick your finger on it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to finish this a bit by hand. I will say that this was a bit of a tax on our food processor. So just watch the power. If you start to smell smoke, turn your food processor off. But it should be done before it does that. So Topher, I'm going to have you spread some flour out on the counter here. There you go. And a good way to do it is actually with your fingertips, so that way you don't get big clumps when you're doing that, and just toss it out on your counter. There
Toss
you
you
go.
out on the counter.
So let's go ahead and turn this out on the counter. All right, and when you're kneading your dough, I'm going to gather it up, give a press, turn out, sticking to the palm of your hand. Just dip it in some flour. And just until it's smooth. This one is almost done.
You're faster than I am.
I
Did it need you
no.
back?
My hips tell you, they don't lie, that they needed the dough. All right, this is good. This is still very soft, but it's not sticky on top, and it's nice and smooth. So this is now going to rest in an oiled bowl. We're going to give a light spray here. For anybody at home who's asking, who remembers the sprayer, yes, this is olive oil. Yes, these are going to be sweet donuts. This little bit is not going to change the flavor. It's going to rest in there. And Topher, in front of your shot there, we have a bowl for you.
I can't.
And it's nice and smooth. So plop right in there. These guys are going to rest for about an hour in a warm place. We're going to put a plastic cover on the bowls until they about double in size. So we'll see you back when that happens. Welcome back. So as you can see, our doughs have risen significantly, about twice the size. They've been sitting for about an hour in a fairly warm place. We're going to start by showing you a close-up of how to roll these out. I'm going to roll these out, and then we're going to have Topher do his half. So let's get you on that side. I'm going to put your wine over here, my love.
Okay.
Get ready to film. So I think you can also see on here we have a couple sheet pans out with some parchment and some towels. We're going to flour the sheet pans so that our donuts don't stick, because we're going to put our rolled out donuts on top of these so they can rise again. You want a nice even layer so that it doesn't stick on the bottom. And then to cover these guys, we're going to do a piece of parchment, which will help keep the towels from sticking to them when they rise, and then a towel on top, and that'll just help things from developing a nice skin. So let's get that guy out of the way. So to roll out your dough, you're going to get a nice layer of flour down on your surface. Turn your donut dough out. Let's get that in the sink. And we're going to get a little bit of flour on top of here. And a little bit on our rolling pin. Make sure that we're not sticking anywhere. This is a fairly soft dough. And we're going to roll this out. You don't need to roll much. Just until it's about a ½ inch thick. And this recipe will give you about a dozen donuts, by the way. So I think we are good. We don't want to go too much flatter there. Now to cut out your donuts, you don't need, and that's probably a little thinner than ½ an inch. You don't need any special tools. Or you don't need a donut cutter, I should say. I happen to have a 3-inch round cookie cutter here, and then we're going to use the backside of a piping tip that I have to cut out the center of the donut and make donut holes. You can also use a shot glass that you just press down into the dough or trace around with a paring knife. Just kind of use what you have on hand. So we're going to start with our cutter and cut out some donuts. And Topher, when we roll yours out, let's roll yours out a little bit thicker.
Okay.
And we'll see how the difference in donuts is, because mine might be a little thin. And then we're going to do the center. And we're going to try both the back end, because these are going to puff up a lot, remember, because that seems like a big donut hole to come out. So we're going to try 3 of these with the back end. And then we're going to try 3 of these with the front end, a little smaller hole, and see which one we like better.
Yeah, I feel like the bigger one is more like Krispy Kreme donuts. Like they have a fairly good size hole.
Probably, and like I said, these are going to rise a lot again, and they're really going to puff up. At least they should when they hit the hot oil. But we'll see what these guys do, and then we'll have little tiny donut holes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then your finished donuts, gently pick up and just get down on your tray. And we're going to let these rise again. All right, so we're back, and Topher's got his dough out. When you're sprinkling flour on top, if I could give a little tip here.
Never.
Instead of sprinkling in one place and kind of moving your fingers, move your hand because you want it more even across the top. That way you're making sure that nothing's sticking.
That's what I was doing.
No, you weren't. Roll out your dough.
Always yelling at me.
And remember, go ahead and use the pan or your fingers to. There you go. Because we want this one a little thicker, so I wouldn't roll it out too much more than that.
All right. Let's see what we got.
Then use your biscuit cutter. If your cutter starts to stick while you're rolling these, or while you're cutting these out rather, just dip it in a little bit of flour, and that'll keep the edges from sticking. Now, if you want to fill your donuts, which we're not going to do on the show today, don't cut out the holes. You would fry these little circles whole, and then at the end when they're cool, you can jab them with a pastry bag and fill them with like jam or cream or whatever. Mm-hmm. Nice. Beautiful job. We're going to finish rolling these out, and then we'll meet you back here when we have the fryer going. All right, welcome back. So our donuts have been resting and rising. They are almost ready to go into our fryer. But first, Topher is going to make the glaze that we're going to make for these guys. Now, in our bowl here, we've got 2 cups of powdered or confectioner's sugar. We have a 1/4 cup of cream here. You can also use milk or water, really doesn't matter. And we have a little bit of vanilla. If you want to flavor your glaze, you can do things like add lemon juice or citrus zest, and look for those instructions in the recipe in order how to change your flavor. So Topher, all you're going to do is pour your cream into your sugar there, and we're going to do just a dash of vanilla, about a 1/4 teaspoon, not a whole lot. And you're just going to whisk that together, and if we hold it up here, that's looking a little thick to me, so we're going to add just a dash of water to this. And when I say a dash, I mean we're going to start with like 1/2 teaspoon at a time, not a whole lot. And if you're thinning out and it gets a little too thin, add a little more sugar. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now if we pull it off, you can see it's falling off the whisk, but still fairly thick. That's about where we want it. So you can see we also have a sheet pan with a cooling rack on it. This is going to serve for when our donuts come out and need to drain and cool, but also so we can pour the glaze over top the donuts and then reclaim that glaze as we go, and also so it doesn't get all over your counters. All right, so we're all set up to actually fry our donuts, and should be able to kind of see these guys have puffed up really nicely. These are some handsome looking donuts. Mm-hmm. Oh, and here comes Teensy One. Teensy One are going to help us fry donuts. She's probably shaking the table right now. So we are going to open our fryer. Now, our fryer is at 375 degrees. If you're doing this in a pan on the stove, make sure you get a thermometer because you want to keep it there. And when you drop these guys in, and you'll be able to see on the close-up, you want to be gentle with them. These need to cook about 45 seconds per side. And we're not using a basket for these. And we have a little fryer, so we're just going to do 2 at a time. And easy way to flip these guys, we have some wooden chopsticks here that we can easily flip them with. And then to fish them out if we need it, we also have a little spider. You can use a slotted spoon, just make sure that it's metal and not plastic or nylon because it'll melt right inside there. Alright, so it's been about 45 seconds. We're going to give these guys a flip, and you can see on the thing here, and Topher, when you go in for it, we're looking for a deep brown color. So if these aren't quite long enough, or if they're too long, just gauge it for your next one. Easy to get your chopstick in there, flip that right over. So why don't you go ahead and do yours. Now, there will be a light, if you see my chopstick here in the close-up, there'll be a light band around the center when it's done, and that's okay. Don't you worry about that. So we'll be back again in 45 seconds to see our finished donuts coming out. Alexa, stop timer.
Oh, yeah, that looks good, I think. So now we've got our donut. It's been it cooked for about 45 seconds on each side, just like the recipe said. That was a perfect amount of time.
And you saw 2 here when we left. There's only 1 because we may have had to try the first one, and they were lovely. So, do you want to put some in, Topher?
Sure.
So, just pick them up gently and drop them right in. Teensy one's going to help with the donuts. And I'll watch the timer on the camera here for our time. Now, if your donuts are a little thinner, they may take less time per side, and your donut holes will also take less time per side, and we can probably throw 2 of those in with our rings there.
Alexa, set a timer for 30 seconds.
And you can see the donut hole flipped itself.
30 seconds, starting now.
Why don't you go ahead and flip, actually. I think that'll probably be good. Alexa, stop timer.
30 seconds, timer canceled.
Good color. Yeah, that guy might have to hold.
Hello. Well, all right.
Okay, so we have some donuts here, and you'll be able to see in a close-up shot, we are going to put the glaze on. So, good way to do it, and I'll show you one stove, and you can do the rest. With your whisk, because it gathers on the end here, you can just kind of drizzle it onto the warm donut and let it drip off. But these look tasty. Yeah, go ahead and do that one. And do our donut holes. And then the extra icing that drips down from your donut, once they cool, you can recycle that to glaze the rest of your donuts. These guys are so tiny, you can kind of roll them in there. Or dip them in and eat them right away.
Uh-huh.
They're too hot.
That's a good donut.
Oh. They're really puffy and lovely. They still have a little bit of crisp after you put the glaze on. Those are good donuts.
They don't taste exactly, but they do taste similar to the Krispy Kremes.
Oh, do they? Yay! Goal achieved! We made good donuts today. So we're going to sit here and fry the rest of these up. Thank you for joining us for this episode 4 of 2 Cooks, 3 Cats. We'll see you next time.
Hope you enjoyed the episode, Jude. Have a good one.